Hey, good thinkers, welcome to Good Thinking Live. I am so glad to have all of you here. The cool thing about this weekly show, or almost weekly show, is two cool things. One, it gives all of us a little bit of time to steal away from all the time we are focusing on what to think or being told what to think, to give ourselves a luxury of thinking about our thinking, metacognition, giving ourselves a little bit of time to think about our thinking. So that's number one. And number two, because this is global and so international, the show, it gives perspectives from, it's so hard to kind of break out of our own perspective, what's happening in our own country, city, town, neighborhood, family. So this gives us a time to kind of cross-pollinate with all kinds of other people. So welcome here. Let me know who you are and where you're from. And let's get started. We've got a lot of rubber chickens to give out. One of the favorite good thinkers, Abdrachid, welcome. Rubber chickens. You know what the rubber chickens, if you're not new to this, you know the rubber chickens. Jennifer Felberg in the house. Glad that you are here as well. A regular good thinker. Rubber chickens. All right, we're going to get started. But while we do, just keep letting us know who you are and where you're from. And this is a conversation to the extent that a live stream can be a conversation. And we're streaming live. And then if you're joining after the live stream, definitely do. We want to still keep the conversation going. So I'm going to say hi to some people. Dong, welcome. Yay. Welcome from the USA. Jeffrey, welcome from Ontario. Well, greetings from Ontario good thinkers. And we have got, welcome Ahmed. So we've got a lot of good thinkers joining the show. Let's get started. First question. A lot of you know, from Egypt. Welcome from Egypt. From Sussex, UK. From Washington, D.C. Excellent. Greetings from the home of the MLS Western Conference champions, soccer fans. All right, the first question, what do you put more effort into? And really think about this. I had to think about it even as I was preparing and thinking about this Good Thinking episode. What do you put more effort into? A, trying to be smart, or B, avoiding stupid mistakes or avoiding stupidity. And I'll say at the outset, a lot of people get triggered by words like bad or stupid, or they mean something, and we all know what they mean. So we don't need to be precious. We kind of know if you want to substitute a more gentle word, that's up to you. But I'm going to be clear that I mean avoiding stupid mistakes. A, trying to get smart, or B, avoiding stupid mistakes. What do you spend more time doing? I'm going to say hi to Jan from Boise and Masood from Pakistan and Amir from Seattle. Okay, am I missing any? I might miss some people as we go because sometimes the stream goes fast, but I'm going to try not to. All right, what do you from the UK? Excellent. What do you spend more time doing? Let me know. A, I really spend more time trying to get smart. B, I really spend more time trying to avoid stupidity or trying to avoid stupid mistakes. What do you spend more time doing? And you can think about it like, do you spend more time reading books about what successful people do? Or do you spend more time learning about, fallacies or errors in reasoning or biases that other people have? Or do you kind of spend more time thinking, how can I avoid those traps in myself? And do you think it is bad in any way to frame our efforts at self-improvement as a negative? Like, do you think it's bad to say, hey, I don't want to focus on avoiding stupidity? That is bad. Do you think that that's bad? All right, so let's get some answers. I love it. Okay, first we've got from Austria, Vienna, welcome. Okay, so Judy says trying to get smart. Arvin says trying to get smart. Ahmed says trying to get smart. Abdrachid says trying to get smart. Jeffrey says trying to get smart. Okay, so this is cool because we've got trying to get smart, both. Aha, both. Greetings from independent Ukraine. Woohoo! All right, so we've got some both. We've got some trying to get smart. Can we say by trying to avoid mistakes, you become smarter, thinking into consideration that stupidity is failing to execute a task? Really good question. As you know, I love good questions. I'm going to answer that in a minute. A, we are all human and we all make mistakes. No one is perfect. We just have to learn from our mistakes and avoid big, stupid things. Absolutely. This episode, because you could make an argument that Isn't trying to get part of avoiding mistakes, trying to get smart? Yes. And then readings from Germany, Stephen says it depends on what's at stake, trying to get smart. Jennifer says, I really don't know for sure. Fair enough. Good, fair answer. All right. This episode is simply about reframing. And I'm going to make a case for maybe for the next week or between now and the end of the year, instead of devoting or focusing on all the time trying to get smart, reading what the smart people do, reading what the successful people do, 7 steps to success. What is Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all of these people? What do they do that I can do too? Instead of that, and if you know why that can be a trap, put it in the comments, because you might have participated in the hint. There's a little hint. We've had an episode on that. Instead of that, just shifting the focus or inverting the focus to trying to avoid stupid mistakes. And I say stupid mistakes. I'm not going to be gentle. I'm just going to call it stupid mistakes. And it's okay because I make so many stupid mistakes that I feel justified in calling them stupid mistakes. I don't need to protect myself by saying, well, that's a reasonable mistake. Sure, but it was a stupid one. And I make them all the time. So I can say that. Welcome. Good morning. Okay, so what do we have? I want to think about inverting the problem away or shifting the problem away from how do we fix this problem to how do we avoid the problem in the first place. So that simple shift, I'm going to take this little banner off so we can get your comments, banners, so we can get your comments, make more room take the banner off so I can make more room for your comments. All right, so we've got another trying to get smart. I'm going to make a case for focusing on B between now and the end of the year. See if I can convince you. At the end, you could say, you didn't convince me. That's okay. This is just about how to think. It's not what to think. It's just shifting what would happen. All right. So my husband and I recently started playing pickleball. I guess it's like the thing for, middle-aged or slightly older than middle-aged people in the US. I don't know if wherever you're from, if pickleball is becoming a big thing. Here they're converting all kinds of tennis courts to pickleball. It's kind of a cross between tennis and ping pong or table tennis. And we really like it. But I noticed, we don't really know what we're doing. We looked on YouTube, we kind of figured out how to do it, and we go out there and just hit it back and forth. And I noticed that we keep trying to slam it at each other and trying to hit it hard. And every time we try to do that, almost every time, it goes into the net. And I was thinking, so last time we said, okay, let's not try to slam it into the net. Let's try to just hit it over gingerly. So instead of trying to win, let's just try not to lose. And what it got me thinking was we really started to up our game. It's tempting to kind of slam it when it's so up there, right there. You just want to slam it and it just goes right into the net. And it reminds me of this book that was written in the 1970s. You have to tell me if any of you have heard of it. It's called Extraordinary Tennis for the Ordinary Player. And it was written by Dr. Simon Ramo like I said, in the 70s. And his premise, he really was looking at the difference between amateurs and professionals. And Jennifer, Jennifer from Arizona, I will definitely repeat the question. We're trying to, the question is, for those of you who joined a wee bit late, we're trying to think, how much time do you spend on trying to be smart versus avoiding stupid mistakes? So that's really, do we need to look through pink glasses to be smart? No, you can look through orange ones. No, that's hilarious. Okay, so back to the book. What Dr. Ramo found was that there was this distinct difference between amateur tennis players and professional tennis players. And he called it the winner's game and the loser's game. And he found that, first of all, a lot of amateurs think that they're professionals, and not just in tennis, but in other aspects of our lives. And it's hard to know, when do we move from being an amateur to a professional? That's not like a clearly defined, unless you all of a sudden start getting paid to play tennis and you were doing it not getting paid before. So there's sometimes where it's clear, but most of the things in our lives, when we move from amateur to professional, we don't even know it. We don't even realize it. But rarely do professionals think that they're amateurs. So that's a little weird thing that he found. But the thing that was interesting for the purposes of our conversation, and you'll have to tell me what you think, is that when he compiled a database of the points scored in actual tournaments by both professionals and amateur players, he found this consistent pattern. In the winner's game of pro tennis, excellent execution accounted for 80% of the points won. So a lot of the time, the professionals would focus on just returning it nicely, not focused immediately on trying to force an error from their opponent. But the reverse was true of the amateurs, because 80% of the points in the amateur losers game were lost due to unforced errors. So most of the points that amateurs lost weren't because the pro or the better player, I guess they were playing against amateurs, hit it to a point where they couldn't get it. It was because the amateurs wanted to win and they created an unforced error. And that got me thinking about this whole idea of inverting the problem. How can I focus? What does it look like to change my focus away from trying to get smart toward trying to avoid stupid mistakes or trying to not be stupid? All right. So, and what would it do to shift that? Now, you could make an argument for how it's the same thing, but how is it different? How is it different? Anyone want to take a stab at how it's different? All right, I'm going to bring some comments in. So Michael says, always recognize that you are not always the smartest person in the room, and you can learn to focus on not making the stupid mistakes. Excellent. And if you are the smartest person in the room, maybe rethink that or go into a different room. Good question. I spend more time trying not to be stupid than I spend trying to be smart. Okay. Ooh. All right. So we've got one person who already kind of knows that's what, and people say, oh, well, don't do that. You're smart. Don't be so precious. What can you gain by shifting this focus? So Hussein says it's normal to make mistakes. No one is perfect. Most of the time, the position put us in the option of avoiding mistakes, either in making decisions or expressing an opinion. We try to be smart. We conclude from this that we should choose the appropriate time and place for the appropriate method. Absolutely. And Dong says it depends. I was taught early, before you think of someone else's mistake, think of the last time you did not make a mistake. Ooh, that's disconfirming. We love any kind of disconfirming thought experiments. So here is perhaps why I think this is an interesting way to kind of shift the thought. And then we'll go over some things about how to do this just for fun, engaging in metacognition, thinking about our thinking. Charlie Munger, the business partner of Warren Buffett and vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, is famous for the following quote. All right, you ready? It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent. So, what can you do to try not to be stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent? Isn't it the same thing? Aha, maybe not. Maybe that shift in focus. So I'm going to bring some comments in. All right. I think in the near future, empathy will grant more personal success than professionality. Did you share that comment, Becky? Yes, we shared that comment. If that's what you're talking about. I try to observe other people. By the way, that's a great comment. I try to observe other people to learn from their mistakes and to be honest with my own failures. Excellent. And you can also, it's also the trap of survivorship too. So you got to be careful about if you don't apply it to yourself. So I like that this brings it back to yourself. Smart is to be empathetic. Okay, I would say that it's an interesting approach to focus on the element that neutralizes your way to success. Absolutely. All right, so how do you do this? Well, how many of you use inversion in your decision making? And inversion, I'll explain what inversion is because you might know it by a different name. It's not about, name that terminology. That's not the point. How many of you use this method in your decision making? Inversion is a method of solving problems by looking at them backward. Okay, so instead of thinking about how to win, it's thinking about how to avoid losing. It's like conducting thought experiments where you have to think about winning or what winning or success looks like, and then thinking about what losing or failure looks like, and then working backwards. It actually comes from math. So inversion is, and how many of you use this inversion? Like you think, okay, what's the best case scenario? Or what's the best outcome? And then you go, what's the worst outcome? And what would have to be true for the worst outcome to occur, and what would have to be true for the best outcome to occur. So this is inversion, backward thinking. Okay, so we're going to get some good comments in here. I think it depends on how did you learn from your mistakes? Absolutely, no question. Because, if you just focus on your mistakes, but if you focus on avoiding your mistakes, then you have to kind of figure out how to avoid your mistakes. So by definition, if you have to work on avoiding your mistakes, do you have to learn from your mistakes? Can you avoid your mistakes without learning from your mistakes? Let me know what you think in the comments. Arvin, backward thinking. Exactly. Inversion, backward thinking. So this is one thing I want to say is that this show is not so much about, in our conversation and this group of good thinkers, is not so much about, do you know the vocabulary word or the reference to this particular scientist or this particular study. It's more about luxuriating in these concepts. Like if you don't remember that the term is, survivorship bias or inversion or whatever, that's not important. What's important is to get the concepts in our minds. So my memory is half the time I'm like, what is that concept? Or who is that person? Or what year did that person? That's okay. That's more what to think. Memorizing. How to think is more feeling the concepts marinate in your brain. And that's what we're trying to do each week, is feeling the concepts marinate in your brain. So if someone says to you, oh, did you read that book on such and such? And you think, oh gosh, I didn't read that book. But you maybe have been exposed to that concept and you've allowed that concept, or you haven't, and you've allowed those concepts to marinate in your brain. That's good thinking. That's good thinking. So I want to make that distinction, because when I bring up these terms, people go, oh, what if I don't know survivorship bias or inversion or, any of these things? Not important, but it is important to know the meaning behind these terms. Okay. So Jennifer says, when I started doing this after learning from you, it's been very interesting. I never remember. Exactly. And she says, I never remember the titles of the concepts. Not important. It's not important. What's important is to start incorporating the concepts and putting these concepts together as like you're putting together a puzzle, so that they all attach to each other. They all attach. Okay. Let's see. We've said, great comment. I love it very much. What we have to do is not be stupid. The way around yes, absolutely. Thank you. The developed techniques and rules in dealing with people were driven from real mistakes. Indeed, all our behaviors are driven from others' mistakes. Yes. Before taking on a decision, I analyze factors which contribute to both cases, good and bad, become basically to have a fallback option if required. Excellent comments. Love all of it. This is why we need we need more good thinkers. We need more people to participate so we can learn from each other. This is the whole point. Okay. So let's just say you're going to use inversion and you want to improve innovation in your organization, or you want to make your life more creative or more innovative, or you want to just shake things up. So thinking forward, you think of all the things you could do to foster information or to foster creativity. And if you look at the problem by inversion, you think about all the things you could do that would discourage innovation and discourage creativity and discourage moving forward. And then what do? You avoid those things. So it's just a shift. And maybe people say, yeah, but the power of positive thinking. Yeah, sure, whatever. Okay, sure. But what about the power of negative thinking? Because if you really think about how you can make your life better by following these 5 steps or whatever, then it's just as fun if you're marinating in good thinking, to think about all the things you can make it, all the ways you can make it the worst, and then work on avoiding those things. So, and it's everyone, and don't worry about your comments. I'm bringing your comments in. This is a really good point. Like sometimes I read the comments and it's going fast and I might not get them entirely. The point is to get the gist, and I get the gist of all your comments. So I appreciate that. People are driving. If you're driving, don't be doing that. Don't be texting. Anyway, yes, conducting a pre-mortem using questions to shift your perspective. I love pre-mortems. Excellent. How many of you conduct pre-mortems? And to conduct a pre-mortem is a form of inversion, because that is imagining that what you did failed. It already failed. Not imagining if it failed, imagining that it failed, and then working backward. That's a pre-mortem. And a lot of times people conduct pre-mortems incorrectly, because they imagine if it failed, this and this and this would have to happen instead of imagining that it failed. And that shift is fundamental, not if, that. Okay, so that's really good. I think have we done an episode on premortems? I'm not even sure. Jeffrey, really good point. I love that. A true rule can push me to continue with confidence. Stop thinking about how other people see me or how they will evaluate my behaviors. Yeah, I mean, there is a balance to how much external validation we should rely on, both positive and negative. Absolutely. Absolutely. What is that balance? I don't know. We're all working on that, right? I am. I know I am. Michael says, what was the negative in one situation may very well be under similar but different circumstances. Exactly. All right. So these are excellent comments. Keep them coming. How many of you think that you could use inversion, feel comfortable using inversion as a method of switching the mindset away from trying to be smart, trying to read all the books and all the articles on how to be smart. Instead, for the next 3 weeks till 2022, I'm going to shift my focus on how can I avoid stupid mistakes? And using inversion, how many think that that could be something cool? I don't know. Let me know. Let me know. I can use inversion, or I can't stand thinking about the worst possible scenarios. I'm not comfortable with that. I want the power of positive thinking only. How many of you can admit it? It's all, we all have our limits, right? All right. So inversion is one way. So how can I become successful is also, if I was successful, what else would have to be true? All right. So the other second thing is, instead of aiming directly at your goal, think deeply about what you want to avoid. For example, how do I get a job offer from X becomes, I want to avoid having my resume lost in a pile of resumes or rejected by the computer because of typos, or I didn't use the appropriate search words, so it got lost. And then working backward on that, like, how do I get rejected from these jobs become how do I get these jobs become how do I get rejected from these jobs, and working backwards. And sometimes it's important during that process of interviewing and getting rejected, or resumes going out and getting rejected, to really put yourself in, okay, how do I get rejected? These are the ways I get rejected, and I'm going to avoid those ways. So it's kind of a similar way to inversion. Avoid making the lists. This is the third one. Avoid making lists of what Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Oprah Winfrey, all these successful people, Brene Brown. Avoid making lists of what these successful people do and then trying to follow those. Why would you avoid doing what successful people all do? Anyone want to take a stab? Double, triple rubber chickens for anyone who can say why we would want to avoid making these lists and trying to follow all of these successful people. All right. So Jan says, isn't it possible that what I perceive as a mistake may not be in someone else's view or some other circumstance and not the one I'm facing? What assumptions are we making about mistakes? Excellent. And that's really good. That's why I'd be very careful about lumping the mistakes as these groups of mistakes. And we're going to get to that in a second. And be very, very specific with clarity about what your success looks like and what your failure can look like. Jennifer says she will use inversion. Excellent. And we've got definitely inversion method will be helpful, especially in preparing strategy, planning, and making important decisions. Excellent. Inversion is one way of solving problems. Time and circumstance is different. Yeah. Okay. I could spend a whole good thinking episode on all of these great comments. I mean, really great comments. All right. Anyone know why it's dangerous to try to be successful by following what other successful people say they do? Seems obvious. Why? And we talked about this in one episode. Maybe we'll go deeper in another. Survivorship bias. Survivorship bias is the fact that books and stories and articles only get written about the people that survive, the companies that survive, the people that are successful. But no one writes books about all the people that failed by following the exact same 5 things. It's not like it's prescriptive, because luck is a huge factor. Randomness is a huge factor. And sometimes what works for one person, these 5 things: never give up, put the customer first, highlight innovation, value agility, all of those things. You could do all of those exact same things that the Oprahs and the Jeff Bezos and the Elon, all of those things, and still have a different outcome for many, many different reasons. So it's a little bit difficult don't allow yourself to be too prescriptive following what other successful people do. Stephen says, because you're not them and your issues and situation may require different solutions. Excellent. You're not them. For example, if I follow exactly what Elon Musk does, at the end of the day, I'm probably not as good at math or programming or technical thinking or even maybe probabilistic thinking. There's a lot of things. I may be better at other things, naming my children. But anyway, that was a little joke. Jennifer says, because we don't have the same situations and experiences those successful people had. Yeah, exactly. And sheer luck. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Next, this is one of my favorite things. And, this is one of my favorite ways of avoiding stupid mistakes. And this is, we could do a 5-hour show on this, I'm sure. Avoiding hasty moral judgments. And let me be clear, it's totally fine to make moral judgments. We all make moral judgments. It's the hasty part that we need to be careful of. And there is a story that helps me avoid hasty moral judgments. Okay, but I got to pull in Judy's comment because it's hilarious. Wear the same thing every day. That is my idea of misery. Okay, Judy, totally hear you. Oh, I'm going to wear the same black t-shirt every day, and that's going to make me successful because I don't have to make a decision about what to wear, and that frees up my cognitive space for making decisions about how to create a computer company. Or come on, really. Live your dream like Elon Musk does. Yeah, sure, right, whatever. Okay, exactly. Live your dream. Okay, if I just live my dream, I'm going to be wildly successful and have a company that sends rockets into space. Probably not. All right, perfect. Good comments. Hasty moral judgments are very easy to make because we see something. We know that person must be good or bad. We know that their behavior is good or bad, so we kind of just make a moral judgment that they must be good or bad. The thing that is that the story that always helps me remember not to make, I shouldn't say always, I do make hasty moral judgments, but make me try to check my hasty moral judgments because, I'm far from perfect in this. Okay, before I give this, I got to say, this is hilarious. So Judy says, thanks for the rubber chickie. And then Dong says, Becky, just a suggestion, get a bigger rubber chicken. But the problem if I got bigger rubber chickens, and I'm going to get to the story in just a minute, is if I had bigger rubber chickens, then I couldn't get like a whole bunch of rubber chickens. How many people think I should just get one big rubber chicken? And when you get a rubber chicken, you get one big rubber chicken. One big rubber chicken or lots of little rubber chickens? Let me know in the comments. All right. Maybe rather than following successful people, we can pick a few good habits, positive thinking, and apply to our situation and problem. Rubber chicken. Kavitha, rubber chicken worthy. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story that always helps me, or I try to have it help me stop myself from making moral judgments. How many of you heard of or know or aware of kind of one of the first mass shootings in the United States? One of the first kind of mass shooter stories. It goes all the way back to 1966. There was this strong, talented, popular 25-year-old named Charles Whitman. And he climbed to this tower in Austin at the University of Texas with a sawed-off shotgun. And for 96 minutes, he sprayed people with his shotgun, killing 13 people and injuring over 30 people. So it was I think up until like 2007, it was like the largest school shooting in the United States in history. And it stood for 40 years as the deadliest. But here's the part that I think is super interesting. In the months leading up to the shooting, Whitman had complained of headaches, and he had a journal, and he wrote in his increasingly troubled journal entries about his mental state. And here's what he wrote. He said, recently, I cannot recall when it started, I've been a victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts. So he even paid a visit to the school psychiatrist. And then in his suicide note, he said, before he went up on the tower, I think he even killed his wife and his mother. And he was like it was kind of out of left field. He wasn't like this troubled, obviously troubled person. And so when in his suicide note, he asked for his brain to be autopsied because he was convinced that they would find a physical reason for his troubled mental state. And what was found? What was found? A brain tumor nestled between his thalamus, his hypothalamus, and his amygdala that was the size of a pecan. Now, the amygdala is that region of the back of the brain involved in emotional regulation and regulation of responses such as fear and aggression. Now, it's not conclusive because, you can't say, okay, this exactly caused this. But many neuroscientists agree that it's entirely possible that Whitman's tumor was a contributing factor to his behavior. And there have been other cases where people have had tumors removed and very antisocial behavior has been replaced by pro-social behavior, and then the tumor grew back. And so the thing the story helps me consider is, and it's not perfect, is the hasty moral judgments. It can lead to major mistakes. And that relates back to empathy, because you really can't be empathetic if you haven't considered that the judgment you're making about someone that's moral, I mean, it could be so totally practical, but you can't know the reasons for people's behavior as obvious. It seems obvious, but it's not as obvious. So that has really helped me kind of help me avoid or try to avoid. And we're just going to go a couple minutes long, but not too long. We'll be done. Usually we like to start at the top of the hour, 9 o'clock Pacific time, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on Mondays, Good Thinking Live here on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and then end at 9:30. But we're going to go just a minute or so longer. So Stephen says, one big rubber chicken. Got thank you LinkedIn Learning, LinkedIn user, LinkedIn Learning. Got LinkedIn Learning on my mind. Just finished shooting another course. It's going to come out in Q1. Very interesting. We can share some information about that soon. All right. So the last two things, and we're going to do a round 2 of this, where we're going to focus on next week on 2 other ways to avoid stupidity or avoid making stupid mistakes, is how to avoid black and white thinking, and then how to avoid labels. And these are really difficult in our era of identity being front and center, and how viewpoint perspective and viewpoint diversity is different from perspective diversity, rather. And so kind of these kinds of things we're going to tackle in round 2 of avoiding being stupid. But the one takeaway now is, and then also how not to get too attached to your original plan. But the one takeaway for today is just invert your thinking. Spend between now, if you want, it's fun, between now and the end of the year, not focusing on how to be great, but focusing on how to avoid stupid mistakes, or how to avoid being stupid, And this goes all the way back to the famous Chinese general Sun Tzu, who said, he wins his battles by making no mistakes. And here's another, the last bit of why I think it's a good idea to do this, to invert your thought process a little bit. Because if you spend less time being brilliant and more time trying to avoid stupidity, you realize that there are many, many, many more ways to lose than there are ways to win. And this makes avoiding stupidity easier than seeking brilliance. So thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. I cannot wait to see you next week. I will get to some of the comments, and keep the comments coming after the live stream, whether you're here on YouTube or whether you're here on LinkedIn. And if you want to subscribe to get notifications, I think you can get the notifications on LinkedIn, but I know for sure on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel, Becky Saltzman, hit that notification button, and you'll get notified when we're going live, so you can join the conversation, or you can get the information afterwards. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great week, and launched into the end of 2021. Just get that little shift. Thanks for joining. See you next week.